Lesson 32, I will interpret quotients and remainders to solve one-step division word problems with larger divisors of 6, 7, 8, and 9. So I know that's kind of a little bit longer learning target than you're used to, but basically what it's saying is once you solve your division problem, you're going to interpret what to do with your quotient and remainder according to what the problem says. And when you solve your division problems, you're going to be dividing by some bigger numbers. We've been dividing by 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now we're going to divide by 6, 7, 8, and 9. All right, so in your math journal, I'm just going to tell you we are going to solve one problem in our math journal today before we get started on our problem set. So go ahead and get your math journal ready today, and then we're going to use the RDW process with this very first problem. So first of all, we're going to read. We all know there are 7 days in a week. How many weeks are in 259 days? So that's a pretty short problem solving, isn't it? Just one step problem here. And it says in the D part, draw what we know and what we need to know on a tape diagram. So I want you to draw a tape diagram that you think would represent how many 7 days, how many weeks are in 259 days. So I want you to think about what would that look like on a tape diagram. Well, this is what your tape diagram should look like, We know that there are 259 days, so that's our total. And like we learned in lesson 31, we learned that we have to decide, are we solving for number of groups or the number in each group? So if you take a look at our tape diagram, you're going to notice, hold on just a second, my pen's giving me a little bit of an issue today. Okay, so you're going to notice that this is our total, and then you're going to see that we have group sizes of 7. So we know how many are in each group. We don't know how many groups. That's what you're trying to find out. We're trying to find out how many 7s or how many weeks are in 259 days. So now we have to solve for how many 7s are in 259, and that would be using division. Okay, so we're just going to write our division problem, so I want you to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and take 259, and I want you to divide that by 7 and see what you get. So go ahead and write your problem out, 259 divided by 7, and then when you think you have the answer, I want you to press play. If you are still struggling with long division, you can follow along with me. All right, so I would first of all say I cannot divide 2 by 7, so I'd have to think about how many 7s are in 25, and I know 3 times 7 is 21, so I'm going to put my 3 in the tens place. 3 times 7 is 21, 25 minus 21 is 4, and then I'm going to add my 9 ones with that. So I say how many 7s are in 49, and the answer is there are 7. 7 times 7 is 49, and that leaves me with a 0 remainder. So now I'm ready to answer the question. So the question is, how many weeks are in 259 days? There are 37 weeks in 259 days, okay? So the divisor in this problem is larger than many division problems we have solved. So you can see that we divided with the number 7. So basically you just have to look at your 7 facts, and if you're still having trouble with your facts, you need to be practicing those every night to make your life a whole lot easier. Plus, you can also use your agenda and look at your multiplication chart until you have all of those facts mastered. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our problem set today. Put your name on your problem set and let's go ahead and read the directions. Solve the following problems. Draw tape diagrams to help you solve. If there is a remainder, shade in a small portion of the tape diagram to represent that portion of the whole. All right, so it says a concert hall contains 8 sections of seats with the same number of seats in each section. If there are 248 seats, how many seats are in each section? So we're going to start with our tape diagram. And if you feel like you know how to draw this tape diagram, go ahead and pause the video and try to draw it, and then you can come back and see if we have the same tape diagram. All right, so I know that we're talking about a total of 248 seats. So I'm going to go ahead and label my total 248. Now, it says that it has 8 sections of seats with the same number of seats in each section. So I have to decide, does this 8 represent how many groups, or does the 8 represent how many are in each group? Well, since it says there are 8 sections with the same number in each section, that tells me that I'm going to have 8 groups. So I'm going to go ahead and divide my tape diagram by 8. I went ahead and divided it by 4 first, and then I just go through here and just divide each of these in half. That makes them a little bit more even. And I'm trying to figure out how many are in each group. So when I divide, I know that my groups have to be equal. So once I figure out what's in one group, I'm going to know how many are in the other. So I'm just going to use division. 248 divided by 8. Once you go ahead and try to divide that by yourself and then come back. All right, so I cannot divide 2 by 8, so I'm going to divide 24 by 8. And 24 goes into 8 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24. That leaves me no hundreds, and now I have 8 ones. 8 divided by 8 is 1. That leaves me a remainder of 0. So the answer is there are 31 seats in each section. Okay, all right, let's take a look at number 2. In one day, the bakery made 719 bagels. The bagels were divided into 9 equal shipments. A few bagels were left over and given to the baker. How many bagels did the baker get? All right, so let's start with our tape diagram. Go ahead and see if you can figure out how to draw and label your tape diagram and then come back. Okay, so we know that our total is 719, so let's go ahead and label that 719. And now we have to decide if the 9 tells us how many are in each group or if the 9 tells us how many groups. Well, it says that there were 9 equal shipments, so that tells me that there's 9 groups. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this into 9 parts. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Those aren't exactly equal. That's okay. I'm trying to figure out how much was in each group. So that's going to be division. I'm going to take 719 and I'm going to divide it by 9. Go ahead and do that and then come back and see if we get the same answer. All right, so 7 times 9 is 63. Notice I had to divide 71 and not 7, and that leaves me with 8 left over. And now I have 9. So 89 divided by 9. 9 times 9 is 81, and that's as close as I'm going to get. So 81, that's going to leave a remainder of 8. Okay? It said in the beginning to go back and shade a portion of your tape diagram to represent how much was your remainder. So if each of these is 79 and I'm trying to show 8, I'm just going to shade a teeny tiny little bit to show that I have a remainder of 8. And I'm just going to label it like this. 8. All right, now I got to go back to my question because I have 79 in each shipment, but the question doesn't say how many bagels are in each shipment. It says how many bagels did the baker get? The baker got the bagels that were left over. So the leftover bagels were 8. So that's my answer. The baker gets 8 bagels. So this is how our learning target said that we were interpreting remainders. This is an example of interpreting the remainder, realizing that the remainder is what's left over, and that's how much the baker gets. All right, let's take a look at this one. The sweet shop has 614 pieces of candy. They packed the candy into bags with 7 pieces in each bag. How many bags of candy did they fill? How many pieces of candy were left? So we're going to start with the tape diagram. So let's go ahead and get our tape diagram going. All right, and go ahead and label your tape diagram the way that you think that it should look and then come back. All right, so I know that there are a total of 614 pieces of candy, and that's my total. So I'm going to go ahead and label that at the top of my tape diagram. And then I have the number 7. And I have to decide if 7 tells me how many groups or if 7 tells me how many in each group. Well, it says that they were packed into bags, but it said there were 7 in each bag. So in this case, 7 tells me how much is in each group, or it tells me the group size, but I don't know how many groups. So if you remember from yesterday, this is how we label our tape diagram to say we don't know how many 7s, we just know there's 7 in each group, and that's what we're trying to find out. So now I'm going to take 614 and divide it by 7, and let's see what we get. So you try to divide it and then come back and see if we get the same answer. So I'm going to have to take 61 divided by 7, which would be 8, and 8 times 7 is 56. When I subtract, that gives me 5, and then I have 4 ones. 54 divided by 7, well, the closest I can get is 7. 7 times 7 is 49, and when I subtract 54 minus 49, I have a remainder of 5. So now I'm going to go back up here to my question. It says, how many bags of candy did they fill? How many pieces of candy were left? So this is where you have to interpret your quotient and your remainder. What does this 87 tell us? Well, it tells us that they filled 87 bags of candy, and the remainder tells us this is how much candy was left over. So I'm going to type this because I can type a little faster than I can write, and then you won't have to just watch me write. So how many bags of candy did they fill? They filled 87 bags of candy, with 5 pieces left over. Okay, so again, that's interpreting the quotient and the remainder. All right, let's take a look at problem number 4. There were 904 children signed up for the relay race. If there were 7 children on each team, how many teams were made? The remaining children served as referees. How many children served as referees? If you feel confident, why don't you go ahead and pause the video and try to do this whole problem by yourself. If you get stuck and you don't know what to do, you can always come back and press play. All right, so this is how we're going to solve this problem. So we're going to go ahead and start with our tape diagram. My total here is 904 children. So I'm going to go ahead and label my tape diagram 904. Now I have 6. I have to decide, does 6 tell me how many groups, or does 6 tell me how many groups? Does 6 tell me how many groups or how many are in each group? Well, it says there were 6 on each team, and we're trying to figure out how many teams. So I don't know how many groups. I just know that there are 6 in each group. So I'm going to go ahead and label my tape diagram to show that. This means there were 6 in each group, but I don't know how many groups. That's what I'm trying to find out. So now I'm going to take 904 and divide it by 6. This time 6 does go into 9. It goes in one time. That's going to leave me with a remainder of 300s. I'm going to add that to my 0 tens. 30 divided by 6 is 5. That gives me 30. A lot of kids want to stop right here because they get a 0, but notice there's nothing in the ones place. We still have to divide these 4 ones. 6 goes into 4 0 times, and 0 times 6 is 0. That leaves me with a remainder of 4. Okay, now I have to go back to the question and see what the question is asking. It says, if there were 6 children on each team, how many teams were made? So when I go back up here and look at my answer, whenever I found 150 to be the answer, that is saying that there were 150 teams made. Then it said the remaining children served as referees, so how many children served as referees? If there were 4 children left over, that means those children served as referees. So let's go ahead and answer the question. There were 150 teams made with 4 children, serving as referees. I don't really know how to get that little thing to go away. No, actually I do. Okay, I misspelled referees, didn't I? Referees. Okay, so again, we had to interpret the quotient and the remainder to be able to answer the question. That's really important. That's why you have to write your answer as a statement, because a lot of kids get right here, they solve the problem, but they don't really know what it means. All right, so let's take a look at question number 5. 1,188 kilograms of rice are divided into 7 sacks. How many kilograms of rice are in 6 sacks of rice? How many kilograms of rice remain? Okay, so we've got to think a minute about what's going on here. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my tape diagram. If you think you know exactly what to do, go ahead and pause the video and do it, and then you can come back and see if we agree. All right, so I've got to think this through a little bit, so I'm going to take my tape diagram to kind of think it through. So I know that I have 1,188 kilograms of rice, and it says here that they're divided into 7 sacks, okay? So I've got my 7 sacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. How many kilograms of rice are in 6 sacks of rice? So they're just wanting to know how much is in 6. And then they want to know how much remains. All right, so first of all, I'm going to have to figure out how many kilograms are in one sack of rice. So it sounds like this is going to be a two-step problem. The first step is going to tell me how much is in each bag. So I'm going to take 1,188 divided by 7 so that I can find out how much is in each bag. So I'm going to take 11 divided by 7, which is 1. When I subtract 7, that gives me 4 hundredths. I'm going to add that to my 8 tens. 6 times 7 is 42. That's as close as I'm going to get. So when I subtract, that's going to leave me with 6 tens and 8 ones. 7 times 9 is 54. That's not right. 7 times 9 is 63. 7 times 10 is 70. So the closest I'm going to get is 9. So 9 times 7 is 63, and that's going to leave me with 5 left over. So this 169 tells me how much is in each bag. Now the question says how much is in 6 bags or 6 sacks. So I have to take this 169 and multiply it times 6. I could take 169 and add it 6 times, but I think that this would be faster. So 9 times 6 is 54. 6 times 6 is 36. 36 plus 5 is 41. 1 times 6 is 6 plus 4 is 10. Okay, so now I think I can go ahead and answer the question. Maybe. This is going to tell me how many kilograms are in 6 bags of rice, and then I want to know how much of rice is remaining. So I could take 1,188 and subtract 1,014. You may have thought of a faster way to do this, because now that I'm doing this, I'm thinking there may be a faster way. Because if you look at this, this is how much rice is left over. This is also the same answer as up here, because I have this bag remaining plus my remainder. So if I added those two together, it would have given me the exact same answer of 174. So now we're ready to do our interpretation. We have to go ahead and answer this question. So how many kilograms of rice are in 6 sacks of rice? So there are 1,014 kilograms of rice in 6 sacks of rice, with 174 kilograms left, or let's say remaining, because that's what the words that they used. Okay, so you're going to notice that I really relied very heavily on my tape diagram to help me to understand what to do. This is where you do a lot of thinking. That's why I've really said to you, make sure you're not skipping this step, because if you skip right to this, sometimes it's really hard to interpret these numbers. You need to draw it out and think to yourself, okay, what does this mean? And then I have to go back to the question and see what it's asking before I can answer the question. So you use those same strategies whenever you're answering your questions. When you get ready to do your exit slip, if you get confused, you can always come back and rewatch parts of this video, and you can always look at your problem set.